I remember when I was nursing my baby and how much he would spit up. I probably had to change my shirt like 5 times a day, and I had to bathe at least 3 times because I stunk all the time. And I was so worried, and I was thinking, is he actually keeping any milk in? There's no way he's getting anything because it just seems like he's bringing everything up when I feed him. And my goal in this video is to turn all those questions that you have, all these like second guesses, into confidence, that you will know exactly what's happening, how to help your baby, and if this is more serious. So today we're going to go through what is normal, why are they spitting up, some natural remedies you can do to help ease their tummy, and some big red flags you need to be watching for. If you end up having other questions, please put them in the comments. I love hearing from you. Let's talk about spit up or silent reflux or GERD. Reflux is spitting up or bringing up of milk after a feed. It's persistent, it's non-projectile, it's very common. And because of the baby's esophagus, it's still learning to handle food. Reflux can develop into GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux. And that's when the baby brings up some acid with it and it starts to hurt their throat. And it causes weight loss, it can cause crying. You'll also see coughing. That's when it's GERD versus silent reflux, which is they don't seem bothered by it at all. They're just like bringing up milk every time. So why does reflux happen? Number one, their tummy is learning how to digest food. So it's exercising, it's practicing over and over again. How much food do I keep in? How much do I bring up? How do I process this? Number two, sometimes we have a very strong flow and our babies end up taking more than what they actually want or need, and so they bring up a little bit more to make them more comfortable. Three, a lot of the times our babies will fall asleep while they eat. And what do? We put them down, which means that with a full tummy, sometimes having not even burp, we're laying them flat on their backs, and that causes gas to build up, that causes discomfort, and that causes more reflux to happen. Sometimes it's not actually reflux, it's lactose overload. Now, there's a difference between lactose intolerance or sensitivity and lactose overload. What is lactose overload? It's when a baby gets so much high lactose, low fat milk that their body creates gas. How does this happen? Either the feeds are too short, we're switching breasts too quickly between a feed, we have an abundance of milk or we're engorged when we feed them, so they get a lot of that high lactose, low fat milk. And you might notice this with its high lactose that they have like frothy or like green or kind of like watery-ish poops. That can be a symptom or a sign of it. What are some things that we can do about it? If it's not lactose overload, right? We're just talking about the reflux that happens. It can help a baby if you're doing more frequent, shorter feeds instead of one big feed. And within that shorter feed, you're taking pauses, you're burping them, and you're allowing them to eat more frequently in smaller amounts. That can help them. The next thing to do is keep the baby in an upright position for at least 10 minutes after their feed. If they fall asleep while feeding, great. Just cuddle them up against your chest, head, spine, neck, all in a line, upright. And this will allow the gas to rise, and typically they can burp it out. They won't have so much pain. Now, if it is lactose overload and you are feeling that abundance of milk, you're feeling like so full before you go to feed, just hand express or put a haka on. I love the haka. And allow it to just withdraw some of your milk. That'll also lessen the intensity of the letdown and the spray that goes into their mouth for a more comfortable feed so that they're not swallowing so much air at the same time. Hand expressing or using the haka before you attach them to your breast will allow your breast to soften, which typically will also lead to a more comfortable latch for you and your baby. And it will give them higher fat milk, which can reduce the amount of gas pains that they have. Next, we're going to be talking about some big red flags that we need to be watching for in our babies. But before we do, I would love to hear from you. If this has been helpful in any way, shape, or form, please like, subscribe, So although very rare, we do need to talk about pyloric stenosis. So what is pyloric stenosis? It is the narrowing of the pylorus, which is a muscular tissue that kind of guards the opening of their stomach. And what's happening in this is that it can't control the outlet of the stomach. You might notice a olive-shaped mass in the lower abdomen of your baby, and it'll typically show up between like 2 to 6 weeks, but it can show up at any time. And it's more common in formula-fed babies. And this is when it's not spit up. They are projectile vomiting. It hurts for them to feed. They are so hungry. They're poor babies. They are crying. They're in pain. They're hungry. And then they refuse to eat. And you just don't know what's happening. You need to be watching for green vomit. Sometimes our babies will spit up or have yellow vomit, and that's part of the bile, but green vomit, this is a red flag, okay? And this like intense pain and refusal of food and the olive-shaped mass, red flags, okay? You need to take your baby to your doctor for further examination. And by like green vomit, I'm talking about like grass green. This thing is noticeably green. If your baby at any point, whether it's they have this projectile vomit or not, but they are losing weight, their diaper output is decreasing, or their urine is more yellow, take them to your doctor. Sometimes with pyloric stenosis, your baby will just outgrow it. Sometimes surgery is required. You are the expert on your baby. If you have a concern, voice it. If I know what it's like to bring my baby to the doctor and I was concerned because of his lack of weight gain, and I was talking to this doctor and just telling them like, he doesn't have much energy. He's not really eating. He's still really skinny for a month old. I'd like some help. And be like, yeah, you're just, all moms worry. Sometimes our doctors are wrong, because I was definitely under the impression that if someone graduated med school, they must know about the human body. They must know the right choice. They have to. But we are all humans, and sometimes some doctor had to graduate at the bottom of the class. And that might be your doctor. So I'm just saying, I just want you to feel empowered, and I want you to know that you are your child's advocate. You are the one who speaks up for your baby, because your baby can't speak for themselves. And if you and your concerns are not being met with scientific intrigue and, all right, you know your baby, you're with your baby all the time, even if your baby looks fine to me right now, if you say something's up, I need to look. I need to search if something is up and what it is and what's happening. That's the kind of backing you want. In the end, you are the voice and you are the advocate for your child. So if you have a concern, you voice it. And if your doctor is not taking your concern seriously, you can find a different one. You are not stuck with that one. You can find a different doctor if you need one. I have personally had to go through multiple doctors, because there was a time when I brought my baby in because his breathing wasn't quite right. And I was like, I really would like you to check him out. There's something off. And they just kind of looked at him, did like a basic test, and like, okay, yeah, he can go home. You're good. I took him home and I was watching him and I was like, no, something is really wrong. He's not breathing right. And thankfully, I have a lot of doctor friends and nurses friends, and so I sent them a video and I was just like, I'm not comfortable. And I'm very grateful for my sister-in-law, who's like, if you're ever not comfortable, you go back and you don't leave. Like, you just demand that your baby be seen and that they be examined properly. And so I did. And I told them, I want you to do a chest x-ray. Like, I want to see what's happening. And he ended up having pneumonia. And anyway, he ended up having to be hospitalized for 2 weeks and suctioned 5 times a day, where they had to put tubes down his throat to pull out all this mucus that had built up, all this fluid that was in his lungs. And if we had stayed home that night, I don't know how much worse it would have gotten, or if I would have left the hospital with him. So listen to your voice. Listen to that voice in your head that's telling you if something's not quite right. Even if everyone else is saying, You're overreacting. You know, this has happened again when I was pregnant. There's just been a lot of times this has happened. So I really want you to latch onto this. You are a great mother. I'm really glad you're here, and I'll see you in the next one.